This week on QDL, we talk with Lisa Ryan, Chief Appreciation Strategist with Grategy. And as you can tell from her title, Lisa is an expert on how to get the most from your employees by treating them well. By honestly appreciating your employees, they will do a better job. Hey, who knew, right? So today we are going to talk with Lisa about engagement and appreciation. What's the connection? Find out in 30 seconds. Welcome back to Quality Digest Live. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making news in the world of quality. I'm Dr. Sharm, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest. So for the past few years, the phrase employee engagement has entered into our business lexicon, and Gallup has done a lot of studies that monitor and measure employee engagement. But what is that exactly? I mean, what do we mean by engagement, and how do we get our employees to, engage? So here to tell us about engagement and what it is and how it ties into how we treat our employees is Lisa Ryan, Chief Appreciation Strategist with Grategy, and an award-winning speaker who works with organizations to keep their top talent from becoming someone else's top talent. Thanks, Lisa, for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here.
Hey, no problem. I've seen you speak before. You're really great. You're really interesting. And you do have a lot of really just common sense ideas on how you, we'll get to this, engage your employees and how you get your employees to engage. So before we start throwing that term around, so what in the heck is engagement? I mean, I see it all the time and everybody kind of refers to it in a different way. So when you think of employee engagement, what do you mean?
A lot of people confuse employee engagement and employee satisfaction. Satisfaction is something that says, my job's okay, my boss is fine. They do the amount of work that they are being paid for and nothing else. When the day is done, they've gone home and they've left their job behind. When you have an employee who is engaged, they have an emotional connection to that organization. They love what they do. Time flies by. They're committed to doing the very best work that they can, and they also feel that they are valued, acknowledged, appreciated, and contributing to the mission of the organization as a valuable part of it.
So they're more than just punching a clock. They're actually, by engaged, I guess we mean they're interested, they're invested, there's some sort of emotional investment, not just this detached, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to leave.
Right. You mentioned Gallup before, and what Gallup has determined is that about 30% of employees are actively engaged. And when Gallup talks about that, the actively engaged person is bringing more value to the organization than you are actually paying them for. They have a best friend at work. And that's always an interesting one because they don't say good friend. They don't say somebody I tolerate. They say best friend because they found that when somebody has a best friend at work, they're less likely to leave. So you think about your rock star employees, most of them would fall into that actively engaged territory. About 50% of your employees are moderately engaged. These are the people who are basically doing exactly enough work so that they don't get fired, and you're probably paying them exactly enough so they don't quit. And then, of course, we have that bottom 20%, the horrible, toxic people who basically suck the life out of the room when they walk into it.
Exactly. Yeah, we all know those. So what is, this is probably pretty obvious, but what's the benefit to the company? Why do you care about how engaged your employees are? I mean, if they're, as long as they're let's say they're moderately to active, if they're showing up and doing their job and not, falling down on the job, if they're showing up and doing their job, do I really care that much if they're engaged?
Yes, you do. Because if you want your employees to give you exactly the effort that you're paying them for and not a gram more, then sure. I mean, and we need that 50%. That they will always be there. But when you have somebody who is actively engaged, the higher your engagement levels, and there are tons and tons of research that show this, the higher your engagement levels, the higher your profitability, the higher your productivity, and the better work culture that you have created.
Okay, so how do you do this then? I'm assuming that what we're saying here is maybe some employees, they come to work, they're just naturally people that get involved in the work because that's who they are. But I'm guessing those are probably in the minority, that most of the time you have to do something as employer to help your employees get engaged. So what would that be?
You know, the interesting thing about that is that a lot of times we overthink what we have to do to employees. Sometimes it's just a simple thank you and being specific, acknowledging the good that your employees are doing, recognizing them for what they do for your organization. Because so many times management is focused on what's broken and what needs to get fixed. But when it comes to high-performing teams, another research study by Marshall Lasada showed that when you have a high-performing team, they are working on a 6-to-1 positivity ratio. What that means is for every one negative thing the people on that team are hearing, they're hearing at least 6 positives. And this isn't all, oh, yay, everything you do is so great. This is, that's a really great start of an idea. How can we build on that? It's respectful communication. If you have an average performing team, it's 3-to-1. It's 3 positives for every 1 negative. But on a low performing team, it's 0.3-to-1. Wow. So these people on that low performing team are hearing 3 times more negatives than positives. And some managers will be, well, if I thank my people all the time, they'll just get cocky and they won't do their job. And the exact opposite is true. The more you find your employees doing things well, the more you catch them in the act of doing things right and recognize them specifically for the good that they are doing, the higher the results, the higher the productivity. And again, you're creating a workplace culture where people don't want to leave.
It's interesting. You mentioned something there, respect. You're probably familiar with a Toyota production system. That's one of the tenets is respect for the employee, respect for the individual. And you mentioned something else also is not just saying, not just passing out, attaboys and attagirls. Oh, that was a good job. And it's like, it's so easy to let that roll off your lip and it doesn't really mean anything. So how does an employer, I guess, build within themselves or have this idea in their own mind of how to respect the employee and to give them accolades that make sense, that aren't just lip service, but something that resonates with the employee, not just, hey, good job, and then you're down the hallway, but something, how do you know what makes sense for that employee in terms of what is meaningful for them?
Right. It's really being specific. The more what gets recognized gets results. So as your boss, Dirk, I can go to you and I can say, hey, great job, Dirk. And you have no idea, well, what part of my job did I do well? But if I say, Dirk, that article that you just completed, you really got into the heart of my organization. You really uncovered who we are. And I appreciate the work that you put into that. Now you know that I'm paying attention to you. You know that I'm finding value in the work that you're doing, and you know that I'm seeing the good that you do. Because chances are, if things go wrong, you and I are going to have a conversation.
Right.
But the more important thing is, yes, we want to fix what's broken, but on the other hand, it's more important to catch our employees doing things right. You're absolutely right. It's not like walking around the plant and saying, hey, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That means nothing. Because if you say great job to a poor performer just to kind of boost them up, the good performers are going to be like, well, obviously his thanks mean or her thanks mean nothing. So you're specific, but you're also looking. That respect that we're talking about, you don't necessarily have to like people, but you do have to respect them. So even those employees that may not be your favorites, when you can find them doing things well and take the time to acknowledge them, not only will they feel more connected to you, but over time, because you're looking for the good instead of focusing on the bad, chances are that your relationship or your attitude towards that person will also improve.
You know, you mentioned two things. You mentioned specificity and knowing more about your, I can't remember how to say it, but basically knowing about your individual employees, what their likes are and what they're doing and what their, what their job is and so forth. And you kind of, you have this great little book that you handed out at your conference, Manufacturing Engagement. Just briefly for everybody, there's 98 proven strategies to attract and retain your industry's top talents, what it says down there. And they're just 99 little common sense things. And by the way, there's a link down there. You can email Lisa and get a PDF version of this from her. But the thing that you pointed out in there that I thought was interesting is how you learn what your employees, who they are and what they do and what their interests are. And you mentioned even doing employee surveys for no other reason than as a manager, you can go back to that employee at some time and be specific when you're talking to them about whatever. And I thought that was an interesting idea, is an employee survey for who are you, essentially, right?
Right. Yeah, there's a really, really easy way to do that, and it's called the All About Me sheet. So the All About Me sheet, I don't have a template for it because every organization, every culture is different. But if you're finding out from your employees their favorite $25 gift card, their favorite $10 gift card, their hobbies, their favorite candy bar, what you're doing is now I can recognize you specifically the way you want to be recognized. Because Dirk, what's your favorite candy bar? I know I'm putting you on the spot there, and there's plenty to choose from, but what's your favorite candy bar?
Payday, the one with the nuts and the nougat.
Okay, so Payday. So if I don't know about that and I give you a Reese cup, I mean, it's peanuts. It's like, okay. And you're probably saying, well, cool, it's Reese's. There's peanuts in there. It's delicious. But if I give you a Payday, there's something in your brain that's saying, she's paying attention. She knows me. And you may not even remember filling out that form 6 months ago or however it was when you told me your favorite candy bar was a Payday. But now it's just those little tiny connection points that I'm paying attention to who you are as an individual and the little things that you like. And the other really important thing to keep in mind there, a candy bar, what's that, like $1? Okay. Yeah. So instead of me always looking for these expensive ways to win you over, I'm catching you in the moment with something you like that can make your day a little bit brighter. A lot of times what they're finding in the research is that when money is a big part of the issue, then it's actually less effective. So that candy bar, that $25 gas card, $10 Starbucks card, if you like Starbucks, if I know that, these are little ways that I can acknowledge you. And again, it's common sense, you're right, and you're not breaking the bank. That's the cool thing about it.
So it sounds like these are all things that you're saying help lead to employee engagement, right? And this is what we're looking for. So I'm sure everybody's guessed by now that you're a consultant. So can you give us some examples from your own work of where you've gone into a company and there was, let's say, not much engagement, and how they turned it around so that they had more engaged employees? Just maybe a couple examples.
Sure. I had a textile manufacturer that I was working with. And what we put together was an employee engagement team. So this was a multi-departmental, people from the shop floor, people from the office, people from all the different departments and different shifts. And their job was to find out, what do the employees want? And management was at first scared to death because they were thinking, oh, these people are going to come back and say we need $20 more an hour, we need big bonuses, whatever. And what they found was that the employees wanted to listen to music. And so with 200 employees in the shop, it's not like they could do that, having classical music over there, jazz over there, old school rap over there. It would be a cacophony of sound that you wouldn't want to deal with. So they said, well, how can we make it work? They said, well, what about if we let them wear earbuds? And then there was some safety concerns. Okay, well, what about if they took the wire and they put it up through their shirt so it wouldn't be caught in the machine? Okay. And what about if they only wore one? So that way they could hear their music, but it wasn't distracting them from what they needed to pay attention to in the plant. And the last part of that was when somebody else came to talk to them, they were to remove that bud from their ear. So again, goes back to that respectful communication. So that's probably one of my favorite examples. This same company also really paid attention to what their employees wanted to do, their passions outside of the plant. There was one woman there that loved baking pies. She was a baker, and over the holidays, she became the company go-to person. She was running a little bakery business out of the plant there. And she was happy. They were happy because I guess her pies were delicious. Another gentleman had gone through Dave Ramsey's financial university, and they allowed him to train the other employees on how to better manage their money. So they were taking advantage of basically the training that they already had with their employees. So their employees felt valued. They had better relationships with each other because they were kind of in that train the trainer mode. But it was a lot of little things that added up to massive changes in the organization. And they've seen their turnover rate fall significantly since they've been doing these programs. It's a fun place to work, and they're not the highest paying, and they're not the largest employer. And yet, because they're paying attention to these little details, they are keeping their employees from leaving.
All right. Well, Lisa, I think we'll leave it with that. That was a great example showing respect, and how a little bit of respect and paying attention to your employees and putting some common sense ideas into place really help improve the workplace. I mean, that's really what we're talking about, and it is kind of common sense when you get down to it a lot of times, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's amazing how the things that we do in our everyday life, it's like we come to work, and for some reason, we throw all those great ideas that we do with our friends and our family. We come to work, and somehow that all goes out the window.
Right.
All right. Well, Lisa Ryan, Chief Appreciation Strategist with Grategy, thanks for joining us. In future shows, we are going to be talking to Lisa some more. We're going to be diving into some topics like encouragement and how to deal with tough times or how to deal with problem employees. So keep your eyes open in your email. Next time we have Lisa on the show, you can see she's very interesting to talk to. So that is it for our show today. And as usual, if there is someone or something you'd like us to bring on the show, some topic you would like us to cover, send those ideas to us at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we will try to get them on the show. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you next week on QDL. So long.